This is the regular meeting for Monday, January 12th, 2026 of the Geneva School Board. Bonnie, could you call the roll?
Larry Kaveen,
Here?
Dan Choi,
Here.
Jackie Ford,
Here.
Willard Hook,
Here.
Paul Rudlinski,
Here.
Molly Ansari,
Here.
Stephanie Bellino,
Here.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome all of you to this meeting. We're pleased to have you with us, and there will be a time for public comment later on, should you so desire. Molly, would you like to lead us in the pledge? The flag is in this corner. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And there also is an attendance sheet in the hall should you wish to register your attendance. Next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes for both the regular session and the executive session of December 15th, 2025. Bonnie, have you received any corrections or additions? Are there any corrections or additions at this time? Motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Dan Choi,
Aye.
Jackie Ford,
Aye.
Willard Hook,
Aye.
Paul Rudlinski,
Aye.
Molly Ansari,
Aye.
Stephanie Bellino,
Aye.
Larry Kaveen,
Aye. Okay. Item 3, recognition awards, presentations, and public hearings. Number 1 is the 26-27 preliminary technology capital plan. Mike Wilkes is here to use technology and tell us what it's all about.
And speak closely to the microphone.
I will try to do that for sure.
Is it on? I don't know if it's on.
There's a green light on it.
Then you're not close enough.
How's that?
That's much better.
Technology. All right, first I gotta connect to the projector, so bear with me 1 second. All right, well, thank you for letting me be here this evening to talk about the technology capital plan and share that with you. While this is coming online here, I just want to thank our technology task force members for being part of the process and giving us feedback along the way, as long as our admin team here at central office who's given us feedback as well on the plan. This is the plan for next school year as it currently stands, and I'm gonna share that for sure this evening. But before I jump into that capital plan, I do want to give you all a quick update on our current student information system progress. As you know, this is our major project, or one of our major projects for this school year. This is an application that touches every stakeholder in the district, just about. So its implementation is one that is very complex, a lot of parts and pieces here. And our goal is ultimately to migrate successfully our data from our current system, eSchool Plus, to the new system, Synergy from EduPoint. And we're excited about that work. Currently, we are doing a lot of efforts behind the scenes, mostly, to ensure that that data does convert over properly and accurately to the new system. We've completed 2 rounds of data conversion of 4 rounds in total before we go live. And so far, so good. We are going through, and we've now loaded nearly every set of data up to the new system as part of our iterative process here. And we've run through quality checks and such and are validating that data. So that data conversion effort is a significant one. Primarily, my team is taking that on, at least to this point. And then as we go into the spring here, rounds 3 and 4, we'll be expanding the access to others in the buildings in district throughout. We've also completed some of our first rounds of training on the new system, and our system setup and configuration. It's kind of an ongoing effort here as we work to get things set up. Our future major milestones is to, number 1, prepare to close out eSchool Plus, close out this school year, and ensure that we're doing the preparation for next school year in the manner that we need to. That is a significant bullet point here. This one has impact not only on our schools, but also on our timing for our families and such with some of our processes that we'll have later this spring. We have training for our teachers, and those that will be training our teachers come next school year. We'll be working with them and getting them on board and teaching them how to use the product. We'll be completing and finalizing those data conversion efforts and ultimately cutting over to the new system in June, July. And ultimately, as we stand today, we're planning to onboard parents and students to the online services here around Labor Day or so in the new school year. And so this is the current timeline of the system migration process. So far, things are going well, and we'll keep you updated if anything significantly changes from this. Any questions on the SIS system before I go into more of the capital plan items?
I had one quick question. So is registration going to look the same this year for parents then? And nothing would look different until next year?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, yeah, new student enrollment, verification that's done every year, all that's going to be done using the existing tools. And then at some point over the summer, we'll be transitioning the new enrollment to the new online registration system. But our families today will be using current tools when they do that process for next school year.
Okay.
Yeah, great question.
Mike, historic data, as it comes across, especially for parents and things that the parents use, will that all migrate to the new system so that nothing will be lost for them?
Yep. So as much of that active current data that we can for active students, all of the major pieces of data and information will come over to that new system. Yep. All right. Any other questions on this topic? If not, I'll go forward. Thank you. And there'll be time for questions at the end too. So if you think of something, you can let me know. Okay, you all may remember this slide from last school year where we shared with you our multi-year infrastructure plan. And based on some of the decision points we made last year when it comes to upgrading our wireless network infrastructure, where we were able to complete the full wireless network upgrade in 1 year instead of 2 years, as was previously planned, this reflects some of those changes here. This school year that we're planning for, 2027, you can see that it's kind of minimal in terms of new equipment implementation on the network infrastructure side. But then in school years 28 and 29, we have additional upgrades that are planned for network equipment. The things that are on deck for this year that we're planning for, or this coming school year that we're planning for, include renewing our current phone system. That maintenance agreement is coming up. Renewing our data center support, that also will come up for renewal here next school year. And doing some cybersecurity assessments that we're planning for and talking with our task force about what those might look like as well, and allocating dollars in our plan for those. So those types of items here are planned on the infrastructure side, and then not a significant change from where we were last year for 28 and 29. We're still focused on completing the rest of our network infrastructure switches, both at the edge and at the core. And at some point, whether it's 28 or 29, we'll be looking at a new phone system to replace our current phone system. That system does go end of support here at the, I think it's in 2029 that end of support happens. So we need to be planning for that and probably don't want to wait until the end of that before we move off. When it comes to next year's capital plan in particular, again, just a reminder, Ed Fund, primarily classroom-facing type technology initiatives, and on the O&M Fund, that's mostly our infrastructure, back-of-the-house type changes that we are going to be putting in place. When it comes to the Ed Fund, we are looking at devices, as we normally do. Staff devices, this current school year, we replaced about half of our staff laptop devices. And this plan includes the replacement of the remaining half of our staff laptops. Student devices for grades K1, 5, and 9 is part of this plan as well. And there's a little note on here that those were approved for purchase in December 2025. And those are currently on their way from overseas to us. So that's good. Everything's on time there. We were able to secure that equipment. We have school identified needs. These are capital items that our school principals have identified as being needed. for their schools, but they often exceed their budget. And so our principals typically identify these items. We talk with them about what priority they want to target first, second, third, etc. And then we plan for those. And so we allocate dollars in our capital plan for that work. We also look to digitize additional records. As you may recall, this current school year and last school year, we worked to digitize student records, and that was a significant project across 2 different summers, and that work has been completed successfully. This process would continue to digitize some of the paper records we continue to maintain, as well as look to other record types beyond student. And then our copiers. Our copier renewal is coming up. Our original end date for the contract was December of 2025, but given the time of the year, we felt like it was appropriate to continue that current contract through the school year and then do a summer replacement of our copier fleet. The last time we had done this was 2020, 2021 time period. And so, as you can imagine, that wasn't the most ideal planning. We did that mid-year back then, but ideally we want to do that over the summer. So that's why that's planned here. I do have a note on that, and that is just that as we look at these numbers here, just know that this is with financing that equipment in mind. As we go through the process of looking for the replacement of copiers, we may review and consider the purchase outright of equipment instead of financing that equipment. And one of the big reasons for looking at that is simply as a way to offset some of the costs of financing. Financing today costs a lot more than it did 5 years ago, 10 years ago when we were doing these contracts previously. So as we look at these, we want to keep options available and then get feedback along the way in terms of what is the right direction for the district. When it comes to the infrastructure side, as I mentioned, I've got those 3 items here for data center, phone system, and our cybersecurity assessments included as well as part of the numbers that we're sharing with you tonight. So in total for the Ed Fund, we're just over 1.3 million. Our O&M fund is about 150,000. A total cap plan budget of just under 1.5 million for both of those 2 combined. Potential offsets on the education side, we have about 300,000. Most of that is coming from the technology services fee that is a registration fee or part of that component. And the other part is grant dollars that we were awarded to support the capital plan. And on the O&M side, it's about $8,000 this year, and that comes in the form of an E-rate reimbursement for our internet connection to offset the costs that we pay for internet service. Because we're not doing any equipment procurements that's eligible for E-rate, that number is smaller than would have been last year, for example, when we replaced all the switches in the school environment, or all the wireless switches and wireless access points in the school environment. And so you can see a potential net, if you consider those offsets, of just under 1.2 million. When we look at the budget projections over time, this is what we shared with you last year where we were projecting to be. The circled portion of that graph is what the plan is that we're sharing with you today. And you may or may not be able to make out where those numbers are, but this line, right, well, you can't see that either. The top portion, or the top dot, if you will, on that gray line that's within the circle there, that's just about 1.8 million. So being at just below 1.5 million, we're still about $300,000 lower than what we were projecting last school year. Again, big part of that's because we moved that wireless network equipment. We were able to do that last year and not have to allocate those dollars this year. And so you can see that as we have updated projections for this year, if I toggle between these 2 slides, the Ed Fund is pretty much about the same. It's really the O&M that changes, and that's what reduces the total capital need for this plan today. Now, on that note, I included about the copier fleet. If we do an outright purchase, that may increase that Ed Fund number by about $500,000. And so that would put that total number closer to 2 million for the total capital plan instead of where it is right now. But again, that would be something we might bring forward if we think it's going to save significant dollars over the cost of financing. Okay, with that, I'll pause for questions or clarification.
Anybody?
Yeah, just a question. And thank you for clarifying about the copier fleet and the considerations of that. So what determines replacement of computers? Is it an actual life cycle? Is it based on age? Is it based on processing speed? I'm sure storage is not so much an issue of being local versus network. So what's the criteria for that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's life cycle, which is based on age primarily. So our student devices, we have a 4-year life cycle plan for. And just given the nature of that equipment, the battery types that are in those 4 years is about the right amount of time before that equipment becomes probably more costly to manage and sustain than it does to just replace it. The other is for staff. Our staff devices actually have an 8-year life. 4 years in what we call like phase 1 of their life. That's where they're in the hands of certified staff, administrators, many of our office support staff, and then they live for 4 additional years in support of loaners in the school level for daily substitutes or for other staff that might need access to a device, a mobile device. So we ultimately get 8 years of life out of those staff devices.
Just want to follow that up. That's encouraging. So I'm not trying to, well, let me just ask. So is it an issue of durability that the children with their devices don't have as long a life cycle, or is it based on something else when you say trying to service it?
Yeah.
Tell me.
Yeah, I think it's based on both the components that are in that type of model, right? So it's a more of a budget type computer than it is like we have
Of
for our
course.
staff devices, where it's significantly kind of more expensive components in those types of devices than we would have in a student device, and battery life is the other big thing. So we know that we want those batteries to live a certain number of hours throughout the day consistently.
Of course.
And we won't be able to reach it. We did have one time period where we went a 5th year with student devices. That was a very rough year. That actually happened to be 2020. So we were coming out trying to live one more year on those, and battery life was the biggest issue in that time period.
May I ask one more
Sure.
question? Okay. So, and again, getting back to the copier fleet. So, just asking, don't know. Those copiers, are those, I presume, laser, or they're inkjet, or how do you characterize that? I mean, copier's not a copier. I just need to know.
Yeah, they're laser.
Okay.
Yep. And so that equipment, we have had 2 different life cycles for that type
Sure.
of equipment. About 5.5 years each cycle here since I've been here in 2015. And one of the nice parts about our setup in Geneva is that I think prior to 2015, my understanding is we had purchased that equipment, and maintained it over the years. And we got to a point where we had copiers of different life ages, state of maintenance, and such. And so work was done to basically, align all the equipment and purchase new equipment at the end of the day, or finance new equipment. And I think that's been a good thing for the district. So when we talk about purchasing the equipment, one of the big goals there is still to also try and maintain that consistency of device and hardware across our schools too. So it wouldn't necessarily be a case where we want to go back to a situation where we would have different life cycles of that equipment like we do with projectors. We have a rolling replacement plan with projectors across our schools, because within a school having the same projectors is important, but it's not as important to have that same projector in another school, if you will. But with copiers, we definitely want that consistency.
One more small question. I'm sorry. Is there? I'm not trying to get into the weeds. I'm just asking. So, are those monochromatic, or do you just have special color copiers for certain circumstances, or are they mostly monochromatic? I'm just
It's
asking.
a really good question.
Well,
So
I'm just asking.
we try and make sure that we do keep a color copier. We have, I think it's one color copier in most of our school locations. Yeah, and the majority of our copiers are mono. Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
And that helps to keep the cost
Of course.
down as well, because color is about 10 times as expensive as black and white.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Just a quick clarifying question.
Yeah.
I can't remember, do our students turn in their devices at the end of the school year?
They do. yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So then,
At the end of the year, he said.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought the end of the life cycle. No, at the end of the year, no. Most of our students keep those over the summer. The only students that have to return their devices are the ones where they're in a grade level, like 4th grade. They have to return those devices because they're getting new devices in 5th grade.
got it,
Yeah,
okay.
sorry, I misunderstood that question.
So, so the current 4th graders, let's just say as an example, they're turning in their devices this year for 5th graders.
Yeah.
And then, for their 5th grade year. So, I guess I don't know how the plan works for the devices and in the cycle of the replacement. So every year it's a different, it would have to be the same grade then, because it'd be different. Okay,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah, it's 159 is our normal. We're doing that every year in this
correct,
plan.
that makes sense.
And then kindergarten every 4th year. We keep the kindergarten
Got it.
devices contained to kindergarten. So
Okay,
kindergartners use that, and then they go to 1st grade, get a new device. That kindergarten device is reused for kindergarten.
okay, so kindergarten is the only one that they return
Exactly.
every
Yeah.
year. Okay, got it.
Yep.
Otherwise the students keep them over the summer, is that
That's
right?
correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Other questions?
Anybody else?
Thank you all.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Next item, Brian Peterson.
So Brian's going to come up and share a little bit about the facilities conditions assessment. Now, the board has had some time to really digest this. We spent a long and thorough and robust retreat talking about some of this information, and these have technically the full-scale facility conditions assessment documents have been released publicly, but we thought it was important to have Brian give kind of like a high-level overview here at a meeting that we knew people would be able to come back and reference, because as you all know, we have a lot of facility and capital needs that'll be coming up down the pike, and we want to make sure that we're being transparent with the community about everything that's going on out there. So now Brian's going to have to hold that mic, because there's no way it's
Yeah, it's
That-
a little too low for me.
no way. All right, so take it away, Brian.
Thank you guys all for allowing me to come here and present on the facility conditions assessment. This was completed, and I will hop into the agenda, but this was completed started in June of 25. It obviously entailed our architects, engineers, thoroughly reviewing and walking the buildings to get a good concept of, where our facilities as far as roofs and some of those other items are at. So there was quite a bit of work that went into this, and just to run you guys through the agenda we have here. So we're gonna kind of talk about what goes into the facility conditions assessment, the process overview, review some of the facility conditions assessment for Geneva CUSD 304. And then I do have some examples of some of those findings that came from this conditions assessment, as well as discuss the outlook for the 10-year plan. And then at the end, we will have some time for questions. So we have a general overview here of our buildings of the district, and this is important. What I do want to take note from here is the general age of some of our facilities. So that'll be important to keep in mind as we kind of progress through this presentation. For instance, Fabian is 16 years old, middle school 20 years old, middle school north 20 years old, middle school south range from 20 to 32 years old, and then Harrison, quite a range with 25 to 94. So that's just some general information to start with. And again, those the age of our current facilities is kind of the key thing to take away from this slide.
I think another thing while Brian's switching, one of the things you can see in that is you can see the era where Geneva went through a lot of growth, right? Because you can see all those buildings that were built around, 15 to 25 years ago, and additions. There a lot of growth happened in our community, around that time. And now those buildings and all the components of those buildings are around that same age.
Yep.
So.
No, thank you, Eddie. And we'll definitely talk more about that on the next slide when we talk about useful life of equipment. But just the general overview. So the reason behind the facility conditions assessment was for us to basically look at our buildings and systems, and it's going to help us kind of identify where we could focus more on preventative maintenance, when to plan for replacement of equipment, any of the items like roofs, windows, doors, things like that, and also how to prioritize our capital projects we'll be discussing in the future. The typical scopes, which is what the architects, engineers were looking at to identify. Some of the general categories we're going to be talking about, you'll hear us talk about MEP, which is mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and you can see those on there. The electrical, replace or retrofit light fixtures to LED, backup generators, which you tend to not realize how important they are until you need them. So that is, they save us quite often, so they're very important to us. Also replacing any of those clock or intercom systems, as well as access controls. Interior of the building, we will be talking about flooring replacements, painting, replacement of ceilings. Blinds is another one for safety aspects of the buildings. Furniture, cabinetry, countertops, as well as plumbing and bathroom upgrades to the district. As far as the exterior goes, you're going to see us discussing roofs, window and door replacements, facade improvements, and then masonry projects. And then we'll talk about mechanical, which is replacements of like our heating, cooling systems, and then as well as site with our parking lot and playgrounds. Here we have important topics and just things that I wanted to define before we kind of delve into this. Deferred maintenance. So you'll hear us talk about deferred maintenance, which is essentially something reaching the end of its useful life and it's just due for replacement. So deferred maintenance looks at that aspect where you do not replace that item when it reaches the end of its life. So we do have some significant deferred maintenance we'll be discussing here, and as well as you'll see that in my examples coming up. And down below that, you'll see we're going to be talking about our annual investments year over year. So the district as a whole has tended to invest a smaller amount of money in their capital projects up until recently, as well as the industry recommended budgeting for our annual building maintenance. Sorry guys. New buildings are going to be looked at in year over year. It should take roughly 1% of the replacement value of the building. So if a building costs $1 million, you're going to be spending roughly $10,000 on that per year. And then so on and so forth. So 3% for older buildings, and older buildings with deferred maintenance 4 to 5%. And then this is another one, useful life, so anticipated useful life. So here, typical life cycle of a roof, 10 to 25 years. Mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, 10 to 25. And windows and doors, 25 to 30. And then the finishes of the buildings, 10 to 15. Casework, which is your cabinetry, anywhere from 15 to 20 years, and masonry, 100 plus years if it's well maintained. Oops, sorry guys. And instead of talking about every aspect of the facility conditions assessment, because it is quite an immense, there's so much that went into it and there's so much information, I figured it would be best to broadly categorize it to give you guys a general overview of where we're at and what's needed per building. So you can see across the top, interior needs. So we're going to be talking about each school: cabinetry replacement, countertops, casework, furniture. You can see here we have needs at the high school, both middle schools, Harrison, Western Avenue School, and Mill Creek. Directly below that, flooring replacement. We currently have needs at Geneva High School, Middle School South, Middle School North, Harrison, Western, and Mill Creek. And some of these aren't, we just did complete work on these. They're in better shape, so that is kind of why you see those not highlighted at the current moment. But as far as the replacement of flooring goes, if we go back, oops, sorry guys. Flooring replacement, and under the finishes, we have that 10 to 15 year lifespan. And at the high school, for instance, we've far exceeded what we should be getting out of our typical flooring system. Some of the carpet, we have Fritz tile in there that's exceeding 30 years old. And the middle schools, we have not replaced any of the flooring at these schools since they were built. So Middle School North, for example, was built around 2004. So we are currently sitting at 21 to 22 years of life cycle on that flooring. And then LED, I know we've started an initiative to slowly replace some of the light fixtures at our schools for the cost savings. And currently, besides what we've completed thus far at Middle School North, and Kesslinger Bus Garage, we currently have all buildings still not marked on there to go through, excluding those two. Also, as far as electrical, you can see everything on the electrical portion is marked except for Kesslinger Bus Garage and Central Office. Currently have upgrade needs for the main electrical panels, generators, intercoms, and access controls at all locations. Fire alarm systems, something important to note about these is the reason we have so many fire alarm panels is because we're running into obsolete manufacturers or devices. So we're seeing quite a bit of the devices for the panels no longer being made, therefore making it quite a bit more costly to make repairs and get those systems fixed. And then plumbing and bathroom upgrades. We do have bathrooms that are original to when the facilities were built, which we will see in photos on the next slide. And then at the bottom, mechanical. So we do have an immense amount of deferred maintenance on our mechanical side of things, so you will see that as a common theme too year over year in our 10-year plan. And then I'm going to pop around here. Here we have photos of the interior of some of our structures. The first two are bathrooms at Geneva High School. So you can see we've got quite a bit of age to those. I think that tile dates back to the 50s or 60s. So we've got that hot pink and that kind of lime green. Currently there, we have casework at one of the middle schools, just kind of show you. You can't really see it, but some of the laminate on the countertops peeling off, cabinet doors are damaged, things of that nature. And then right here we have the high school flooring. So that is one of the corridors in the older hallways. It's still pretty much original outside of the flooring that was upgraded some years ago. And then down below that is a photo of the gym at Harrison, just kind of showing the outdated LED lighting, the flooring upgrade needs. Then we still have the older style fold out lunch tables that are quite costly for us to repair and give us issues. And next to that is a fire alarm panel from Heartland, and that is currently one of the systems that is becoming, well, has become obsolete and is due for replacement. And then this is some of our major components, and you can see at the top there. So these are some of the more important items I wanted to highlight. You can see it in the header: broken boilers, empty classrooms, schools closed. So these are the big ticket items that we want to avoid failure on. So wanted to highlight some of these. You can see those first two at the top. Obviously air handlers. And this middle one there is actually the original air handler for the Mac Olson gym. So dating back to the 50s, I believe. And then we have here the main electrical gear for Middle School South. And down below that are the original boilers from the renovation at Harrison. And then we have a condensing unit for the air conditioning at Harrison as well. That unit is currently 40 years old. So we got quite a bit of life on that. And then same thing here for what we did for interior. Basically across the top we have exterior needs as well as the schools. And you can see here we got roofs, windows, doors, masonry, parking lot, and playgrounds. And here I do want to highlight the parking lot section. As you can see, all of our parking lots are due for replacement or need major work. Outside of Kesslinger, which was just replaced this last year. Playgrounds as well. I know the playgrounds, we're seeing failure in the playground surface, and it's just not the prettiest thing. You guys can see every patch kind of shows through, and those do have a useful life. It's basically padded out, poured in place surface that is good for about 15 to 20 years, and looks better than mulch, but it is quite a bit more costly to maintain and upkeep. And then what we'll discuss on the example are the roofs. And you can see we have quite a bit of roofs outside of what we've currently replaced or coated. That's going to be coming due as well. And then here are just some of the exterior photos I wanted to talk about. We've got windows at the high school, which I know it is tough to see, but kind of windows fogging up, failing, broken seals. We've got the generator at South, which is coming up on 30 years old. And then we've also got a parking lot where you can see some of the potholes forming, alligator cracking, and some of the failure of the undersurface. Down at the bottom there are exhaust fans for the science wing at the high school. You can just see that they're rusting out, not in the best shape, and we do have quite a few issues with those. And then we have concrete work at the main entrance of Harrison, so you can see it's kind of cracking, spalling there, as well as the playground surface I talked about. Doesn't look the prettiest, but it, like I said, it is quite costly for those repairs to be made.
Is it just a playground surface or playground equipment itself?
It would include the playground equipment as well. Sorry. Thank you. And then this is one of the examples I wanted to discuss to kind of highlight deferred maintenance and what we'll be having coming due in the next 10 years. It's just kind of thought it'd be helpful. So what we have there is each school to the left, and you can see at the top across there, replacement greater than the 10-year plan, end of useful life within the 10-year plan, and roofs currently due past useful life, and that those numbers are depicting square footage. And down at the bottom, it's a percentage of the total square footage of roofs we would currently have due. You can see past our useful life is currently 20% of our roof surface. Reaching the end of its useful life within the 10-year plan is going to be 50% of our roofing surface. And then outside of that 10-year plan is, 29%. So that's just highlighting some of the deferred maintenance we're currently dealing with, as well as what will be coming due in the next 10 years. So we do have about a roof every year we'd be looking at doing work on or replacing at that current rate. And here we just have, bear with me, but they're photos of the current roofing situations. In the top left there, you can see a roof surface at South, currently kind of delaminating from the surface. Experiencing some leaks in that area. In the middle there is the skylights at Middle School North. They're fiberglass and they're just in poor shape. It's just due to weathering. To the right of that, another EPDM roof with the heat kind of causing that roof to buckle and cause it to deform a little bit. And then the ones down at the bottom just show where some of this, it's lost a bit of the slope and it's either washing away the gravel or water's ponding. And then here on this slide, we're going to be talking a little bit about what we're looking at for the 10-year facility plan and capital planning. So we have high priority items that are absolutely going to be considered in the capital plan. Things like mechanical work, which is our boilers, chillers, condensing units, electrical replacements, plumbing, the roofs we just talked about, our parking lots and site work, as well as accessibility. Additional high priority capital projects, creating equitable spaces across all schools, building energy efficiency, playgrounds, and then we have district-wide investments, which are projects we've kind of already started, or how we maintain our facilities, which are LED upgrades, as well as our preventative maintenance programs. And then at the bottom here, we see the potential minimum investment over the next 10 years of $92 million. And then below that, a maximum potential investment of $190 million. And it's important to note that that is in today's dollars, and we would be dealing with obviously escalation as time goes on. And then just to recap here, we talked about the Bay Street District facility needs, and obviously this would involve continued engagement and ongoing discussions for things identified in the 10-year plan. And then the need to deal with our aging facilities, as well as deferred maintenance, and preventative maintenance and continuing investments are how we're going to continue to maintain our facilities. And then ongoing planning and continuing the development of the 10-year plan are going to be our next steps. So it is a living document, and it will continue to evolve as time goes on. Any questions?
Anyone have any questions?
Yes.
Oh, the question is, and thank you for pointing out the LED lighting, but LED lighting varies, the ambient lighting varies with the volume of the room. So are you suggesting that across the board that there'll be a replacement of all these lights with LEDs, or is it based on the circumstances of that room? Because it's just physics. It's an inverse square.
Yeah.
The further you away from a source, the dimmer it's going to be. So if you're in a volume room, I'm just asking.
Well, as we sit right now, we were currently looking at going through every space of each building. And it depended upon need of that space. We could talk about different styles of fixtures, but as we sit, we were currently looking at upgrading all fixtures to LED.
All of them? Did I hear that?
At the current schools that we're working at, yes.
And that's across all rooms? Because this room is very different from a gym in terms of an intensity.
So, and that is correct. So we do use, we do use different types of fixtures. So it's not just the fixture you see here used across the board in all rooms, right?
Yeah.
So a gym would be different than what you see in here versus some of our choir music rooms with 20 or 30 foot ceilings.
But
So they will differ a little bit in temperature range and things of that nature.
Yeah, and Kelvin's, but
Yep.
what I'm asking is that you're saying that you're gonna replace all of them, whether it's a gym or whether it's a room like this, with LEDs. That's your suggestion.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Brian, thank you very much.
Thank
for
you,
the
guys.
Overview, we appreciate it very much. Jeanette Sims is next with the math course update.
Thank you, Brian. Maybe while Shaunette's connecting, I'll just commend Brian and the operations team in general. I mean, we clearly have some facility needs that we'll have to address here, but also our facilities look great, and they work hard to take care of and maintain what we do have in place. Especially when you consider some of the challenges that we're facing and we're going to have to address here in the years ahead. So I know sometimes, we don't want to paint the picture that everything's like crumbling or anything, right? But there's just a lot to do. It's just like your house, right? If you don't maintain things over time at home, sometimes you could get caught behind. And I appreciate that Brian left that kind of newspaper heading in the presentation. What we want to avoid is anything that could keep us from having school for kids, and especially when it comes to those mechanicals and plumbing and all that kind of stuff. We've got to make sure we're in fire systems. Got to make sure we're on top of all of that. So, and I know the board's had a lot of conversation about this already, but anyway, just thank you, Brian, to you and your team, and now I'll quit talking so you can hear from somebody smarter than me. Thanks, Sean.
Thank you very much. I thought it might be appropriate to come this year and share kind of the first year successes of the EL math opportunity that we developed for our students at Geneva High School. As you may recall, last year we came forward asking for a section of math to be relegated for our students who were considered newcomers to the United States, and newcomers certainly to Geneva as well. So we had a math teacher, Mrs. Jen Thill, who was willing to take on this course, and so her having the content expertise, along with one of our bilingual Spanish instructional assistants at the high school, have taken that on for this school year. So if you recall, the primary goal behind it was we just wanted to continue to ensure that all of our students had equitable opportunities to learn to the best of their abilities. And we understood that that newcomer population presented some unique challenges. We have some students in that category who are new to the United States, not speaking English, that are coming from a school system without any gaps in their education, or other indicators that they need to or other situations they need to overcome, as well as we have a student that came to us last year who had not been in a school for 4 years due to myriad reasons. So while it was a small group, it definitely was a challenging group, and that they all presented unique needs. So as stated, the program began last year. It is designed for our newcomer students. The goal was to have that content expert be able to provide that content information. Our our EL teachers are a lot like our LBS, where you're kind of inch deep and a mile wide in a lot of content areas, but the schooling that you partake in to get that degree doesn't require you to have necessarily the mastery of a particular content. So and when we do have that mastery, it typically is not in the area of mathematics. So again, we appreciate Mrs. Thill being willing to take this on. So the decisions were made so that the students could avoid being pulled out, and that's what was happening before, is they were struggling in the class, therefore they were pulled out into the ESL classroom, And the teachers were trying their absolute best to meet their needs, but again, without that content expertise, it was difficult for them to, really continue to progress them forward in the area of mathematics. And when they were placed in the regular classroom, it was difficult to overcome that language barrier to really ascertain what it is they could and couldn't do mathematically. So that kind of became a, classroom within a classroom where they were sitting in the back of the room on a computer, which isn't ideal for, the students in that situation, nor was it appealing to the teachers who felt like they weren't meeting the needs of those students in the best way possible. So, last year the program started with 6 students, so they were in it for the first year. They just wrapped up their first semester. This year, 2 of those students continued in last year they continued, they're in their second year now. They continued in what we're calling it foundational math. It does garner high school credit. We did check with Wabanzi, and it is math courses. It is a math course that they would take as credit. They'd still have to take the placement exam, but hopefully they'll learn the skills that would enable them to pass that. 2 of the students continued with that. They each earned an A- in this first semester. In the second semester, the teacher is adding geometry information as well as some algebra 2 information, what would typically be in the algebra 1B, so that if possible, the students could go to geometry concepts and apps next year, or they could go on to the algebra 1B. So she's hopeful that they can kind of get both of those contents in a little bit more securely before moving on next year. Again, the recommendation would be for next year, that combination course. 2 of the students from the first year transitioned to algebra 1. They got a C+, one student earned, and the other student earned a C, so that is the regular track paced course. So they're doing very well. They will be recommended for geometry concepts and apps for next year. 2 transition to the algebra 1A, the actual, again, typical course. That's a 2-year algebra 1 class. They each earned Bs. They will be recommended to take 2 math classes next year. The 1B, they'll take that concurrently with the geometry concepts and applications, and then that would allow them to take algebra 2 the following year. Because that's one of the things we were discovering too, is that because of where we were starting our students who were newcomers, they were not getting to that algebra 2 information or concepts, not only prior to graduation, but not even prior to, their junior year when they would take the ACT, depending on when they came in with us. So this information, we feel that they've demonstrated success. I had Mrs. Thill talk to the students. We did ask if any of them would be willing to come and speak tonight, but they preferred to share with her how they felt. 2 of them stated that they feel better about math than they have ever felt. They felt that, they could learn better. The 2 students that are in the regular classroom actually go during their study hall. If they have a question, they still seek out Mrs. Thill to work closely with her. So she does that during her planned time, which she is not at all obligated to do. And she said that they do not take advantage of it, and she's happy to help when she can. So I appreciate that she's made those strong relationships with the students. So what I would share is that what we do recognize this is a small class. It is one section out of all of the math sections that are offered. So I would, ask for the board to consider that we continue to offer this course in the coming school year. That benefits of it being taught by a content expert with support in that heritage language, or L1, are great, and that our newcomer students are demonstrating their knowledge and the ability to grow at a faster rate, thereby opening up opportunities for them to continue in mathematics, as well as to accelerate their learning in that content area. So we thought, again, just a kind of update, since that was new, we added that. It was something kind of outside the box for us. And any questions on the first year and a half? I said first year, but we wrapped up the first semester.
Questions? I will say that it seems like a really excellent solution to a problem that's unique to certain students, and I really appreciate your taking the effort to bring them up to where they can compete on a normal basis, which is what we like for all of them. So thank you for very much on it.
Absolutely.
I just have one question. Were there only 6 that were identified that needed the additional, or was it?
It was, this is for newcomers.
Sure.
So.
There were only 6 newcomers.
Yes, we had
Okay.
6 newcomers, yes.
Got it.
There were others that are eligible for EL services that you know, some of our colleagues at the high school were like, oh, and what about, and we were like, no, let's leave this for our newcomers first. And
Perfect, thank you.
Question here, do you have newcomers that are coming that other than Spanish?
yes, we do.
And how are they being supported with the different languages?
That's a great question. They are supported through the typical means, meaning you know, they can use the translation devices on their computer, the use of visuals and things in the classroom. I will say that many of those students that come that speak languages other than Spanish, you know, they don't tend to have some of the same inconsistent schooling or interruptions to schooling. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The next item is public comments. Bonnie, have you received any requests for public comment? Would anybody like to make a public comment? All right. 5, legislative updates.
Okay, I just have a brief report tonight. Not much going on because the House and Senate have not been in session. However, the Senate is coming back in session tomorrow, January 13th, and the House will come back a week later on January 20th. So they will go back to work looking at different legislation and moving things forward. They are scheduled to be in session through May 31st, which is typical. They usually go through the end of May. It's also during that period that they'll be looking at next year's state budget. So they'll be busy, and as they start moving on different legislation, I'll give you updates at that time. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Jackie. Superintendent's report, item 6.
Thanks, Larry. Just a few quick topics to touch on today. First, not included in my slides, but you may remember when Mrs. Plazinski and our team from Harrison came to, our third graders came to talk to you about their Ronald McDonald House project. She emailed me today and said they want to come back and be collecting those tabs. So hope that you've got your little houses still, because they might be coming back later this spring to collect those. So the students asked if I would put that plug in for you. So first, just a quick update, and again, thank you to the board here. As you'll recall, we discussed over the course of this year, and most explicitly, you passed a resolution at our last meeting to do some refunding of some of our bonds. And, you know, we were able to get underway with refunding of those Series 2016 bonds. So remember that this is like kind of like refinancing your mortgage. So our existing debt that we had in place in the district, those bonds became callable, which means it was an opportunity for us to be able to refund or refinance them at a better rate. Same amount of time, same payoff duration, but because of that better rate, we're going to be able to save the taxpayer some money in doing that. So Todd and I have been working with Elizabeth Hennessy, who was here last time from Raymond James. We've spent a lot of time on this over the last several weeks. Had a couple calls today and this week. Or first, I guess I would say, we were able to maintain our strong AA+ rating. We released our official statement, and this week will officially be the bond sale. We're actually hopeful that by tomorrow those bonds will be sold, but certainly over the next couple days here, and we will be able to formally close this issue with you at our next meeting. So it's all working out very well to save the taxpayers some money, and we'll inform you at the next meeting how that all went, and we're looking ahead to that same process next year for one more series of bonds that will come due at that time. Also wanted to follow up on something from a few meetings back that I thought might be helpful after some follow-up questions. So you'll recall we shared when some of the state data came out, the school report card data came out, we highlighted kind of where Geneva as a district falls compared to all the unit districts in the state. And we looked at this scatter plot, the red triangle there is Geneva School District, comparing our district to you know, all the other unit districts in the state. And one of the things we noted, obviously, and this is a correlation, you can see the percent proficient on one side, as compared to our per pupil instructional expenditure on the other axis there. And so what you see, obviously, our performance is we have strong basic proficiency, and that's what this is showing, right? How the percentage of our kids that meet basic proficiency standards across the district, and you see that looks pretty strong. So one of the questions that came up was about comparing us across. Well, I guess one of the things we talked about a little bit is what are some of these districts over here doing, right, that are spending less than us, but are still having some, high levels of strong basic proficiency. And so a couple things to highlight here. One is to note that to make sure we understand what are some of the key drivers of per pupil expenditure. And the biggest one, right, is your tax base, right? Here in Illinois, where most of school district funding comes from local property taxes, your tax base is going to be a key driver of per pupil expenditure. And so districts that have a higher tax base are going to spend more. Two other key drivers, obviously, then associated with that tax base are your FTE, full-time equivalency, or the amount of teachers you have, and then the types of programming that you can offer. And I think the key factor that is kind of what's important to note here when we talk about these districts that are over here, to the left of us, they have strong basic proficiency. What they also have is, generally speaking, a much smaller tax base. These are like more rural districts. What that means is they have less, often in many cases, less FTE devoted to less variety of programming. So while they have strong core academics like we do, they might not be able to offer some of the same types of programs like we have, like the math class Mrs. Sims just talked about, for example, or multiple world languages, or some of those types of things. Those districts might not have some of those things, and so that's the key difference. So another thing to look at when you're going to compare that I think might be helpful, another way to look at it is not just to look at these districts that are to the left of us that have that same proficiency but are spending less, but let's look at the districts that have about the same per pupil expenditure as us. So theoretically, they have about the same tax base or the same capacity for programming or whatnot. And when you look at that, you see also, again, Geneva 304 performing pretty well. When you compare us to districts that are spending about the same as much as us, our kids are doing pretty good. So as we shared when we first looked at this, doesn't mean there isn't room for improvement, and we know there is room for improvement, and we're constantly trying to work. But I thought adding that context for you might be a little helpful, especially because when you think about that per pupil expenditure, many of the things that we offer are things that not only we think are important, but that we know our community values and our community wants to ensure that we maintain, right? Like we're expanding dual credit. You've got a lot of AP classes. We have rich arts programs and things like that, and our community values those, and that's what contributes to that bottom line there a little bit. So I just wanted to follow up on that from a few meetings back. Then as we're looking ahead, obviously we heard about some of this, but we got a new semester started. Feels like we're back in the thick of it already. As administrative team, we're looking at course and staffing planning for next year. We're already getting that underway. I know Dr. Law's working with all the administrators, taking a look at that. We're looking at courses for next year. Mike shared with you already information tonight about the student information system transition and a lot of work that's going into that for next year. And I think important to know, lay a little breadcrumb about this. Some of those processes that we have in place, like verification and registration and course selection, some of those are accelerated this year because of this transition that we're making with our system. So families may be seeing, some things sooner than they have in the past, or maybe having expectations to take some steps earlier than they have in the past. That is by design, and that's because we want to make sure we're staying ahead with this student information system transition. Then last, just briefly, I want to make sure I give a little plug to the whole community here. I'm doing a couple of Community Connects events here within the next few weeks. I've done these the past several years, and they've been great discussions. I certainly come with some things to share about our progress on our strategic plan and all that kind of stuff, but I think the best part of all of these meetings has been just people come and can ask questions, and we can just have some authentic conversation about what's going on in the school district. So anybody who's watching the video, come on out. You can RSVP. We'd appreciate an RSVP just so we can plan for you. Our partners at the public library are letting us use one of their beautiful spaces. And I'm looking forward to meeting with, some residents of the community to talk about all the stuff that's happening in our district. So that's all I got, Larry.
All right, thank you, Andy. Next item is board dialogue topics and pending action consideration. First item is policy updates. This is the second reading of these policy updates. Policies 7.200 and 7.210. Any questions? Go to the policy chair. Any questions? All right. These policies have been reviewed by the administration and the policy committee. They were presented for the first reading on December 15th and are being presented at this time for adoption. Questions? And if not, approval. A motion.
So moved.
Second.
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. Item 8, work study topics and future action consideration. A laundry list of policy changes here. Any questions for our policy chair?
So these are our first reading on these, so we'll go through them again at the next meeting, and you can bring any questions you may have, but welcome to take any now. A lot of these are just updates based on legal language and small things that were changed, but no major changes in these policies.
Okay, thank
Stephanie, any that we should kind of take a closer look at, or are they all pretty well just more?
These ones aren't, there's not any that you'd probably want to look deeper into, but we will have more come out again in the next meeting, and those were the ones we spent a little bit more time on and spent 2 meetings discussing, so more to come on the ones that we went in depth on.
Thanks.
Okay, anybody else? All right, that takes care of that for now. The item 2 in this heading is the 26-27 board meeting calendar draft. And this is a draft copy of the 26-27 board meeting calendar. The dates are based on previous calendars, with the meetings being on the 2nd and 4th Mondays, retreats based on the previous years, but the need for them may be discussed. There's no action required at this time, but if anybody has any questions. Okay,
I
item
think
9,
the only
information.
thing is, I know that we don't have the retreat this year, this coming, it would have been
Friday.
Saturday, Friday,
Yeah.
Friday, Saturday. It being a long, we have next Monday off, right?
Is that next Monday already?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Monday is Martin Luther King Day.
Yeah,
Well, I
so
should have
next
mentioned that in my
year,
report. That's an important day. I'm sorry. I
Yeah.
can't believe that's that fast.
so next year, I don't know how January 15, 2027 falls, but if we could, and if we do have a retreat,
Make sure the retreat doesn't fall on a long weekend.
yep,
Gotcha. We'll double check that.
okay.
Thank you.
It's a long-winded way to say
That's a great question, Dan. January 15th is also my birthday, so we can avoid having a retreat on that day as
Right.
well.
You'll probably be skiing, Larry.
We'll see. Okay, any other questions? Thank you. Information, item 9, board meeting presentation schedule, we've got that. FOIA requests, board correspondence, demographic and enrollment projections report, capital enrollment bid results. All of these are just informational. Of course, you've read them in the board book, but no discussion is required unless somebody has any questions.
Just have one question on the demographic report. Is that the updated version?
Yeah, so as you'll recall, we worked with Dr. Charles Cofron to do an in-depth demographic study, where we looked at trends. We've talked about that a lot over the last couple years and used that to help make some of our decisions when it comes to class size and, maintaining our current elementary, boundaries and neighborhood schools and whatnot. But one of the things we committed to was updating that each year with new birth data. So Dr. Cofron finally was able to get that updated birth data, and that's the report that's included for you. As expected, it follows the trends that we were already seeing. So the conclusions that we drew when we received the first version remain. Thanks, Jackie.
Anyone else? Thank you. Now, my personal favorite, the consent agenda, item 10. 1, personnel report, resignations, retirements, leave requests, changes in assignment, full-time equivalent, new hires. Item 2, gifts, grants, requests. $1,100 from Uniball Corporation for the GHS College Signing Days. Item 3, gift grants and bequests, $17,840 from the Mannon family for GHS Marching Band. Item 4, gifts, grants, and bequests, $500 from Hogan Design and Construction for the GHS Unified Vikings program. Item 5, gift, grants, and bequests, $309,000 from Fabian Foundation for scholarships and technology requests. Any questions? Approval is recommended.
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
Willard Hook,
Aye.
Paul Radzinski,
Aye.
Molly Ansari,
Aye.
Stephanie Bellino,
Aye.
Dan Choi,
Aye.
Jackie Ford,
Aye.
Larry Kubie.
Aye. And thank you. And thank you also to the people who gave these various gifts, grants, and bequests. It's a very generous thing to do, and we do appreciate it.
Aren't we so lucky?
We are so lucky.
Unbelievable. We really are. It's really awesome.
Next is board member comments and reports. Shall we start with Stephanie this time?
Sure. So just a few things. Hope everyone had a wonderful winter break and is jumping back in. I have a lot coming up over the next few weeks, whether it's communication task force or PTO meetings. So that's more to come as we head into the new year. But policy committee has been hard at work, not only with the policies we saw tonight, the first reading and our approval, but more to come. And I just wanted to thank the policy committee and the board for your work on all of those policies. We've done some really great work, and I appreciate everyone's input into creating those policies. Also, thank you to the presenters tonight. I think all the information was valuable. Not always the most exciting topics when we're digging into the nitty-gritty of all those, but really important, valuable things that happen in the district that we couldn't function without. So thank you. And something else that I love about the presentations is not just the information we got, but like I think the EL math course is a great example of that's a good update on something we've already talked about. So I love getting to hear like what the progress of that was, some of those decisions we've made, what does that look like now? So thank you, Mrs. Sims, for bringing that to us and sharing with us so that we can stay in tune to all of that and know the progress on those things. I appreciate it. But that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you. Willard.
Yes, I'd just like to say Happy New Year to everybody. Wanted to just say that I appreciate the thought and detail that goes into these presentations. Thank you, Mike, and showing us the allocation of dollars and how important it is for this the technology. And thank you for giving us some insight in terms of how this breaks down. Also, I appreciate also the presentation on the facility conditions assessment. Sometimes the questions may seem off-putting, but that's not the idea. It's just that we want to have clarification, and I think that's a very good thing that we have this open forum to talk and to discuss and discern what we're doing here with our trust with the citizens. I want to commend Mrs. Sims about the mathematics EL program. I have one professor who talked, I was his teaching assistant, but he said basically mathematics is the purest of all sciences, and everything else is built on top of that. So I think it's just so key. We talk about reading is fundamental, but mathematics is so fundamental. Numeracy is something that I believe these students will be able to build on. And who knows? They may go into something in science, but they need that firm foundation in mathematics. So glad to hear that whatever the language or that they're learning, that it's something to help bridge that. And so the sciences are very important in this day and age where people say it's not so important, but I think it's a good thing. So I appreciated hearing that progress. And also, I just thinking about what Andy was saying about the way we're standing in the state. Now I don't know how many of you have access to New York Times, but this morning on the front page, they were highlighting fourth grade literacy scores in Mississippi and how they went from 49th in the country to the top 10. And I thought, wow. And they were saying it's not based on money. It's based on just they have coaches coming in. Imagine that, you know. So I looked at the national report card and how Illinois stands up with the rest of the states. And so we're in pretty good company in terms of some states actually falling in literacy, and exactly the fourth and the eighth grade scores are what they're looking at in terms of reading. So I thought that was important, Andy, that you pointed that out in terms of sometimes not how much money, but also how we allocate it. So that was good to hear. So that's my comments. Thank you.
Jackie?
All right, want to welcome everyone back. Hope everyone was able to refresh and recharge over the winter break. I was able to attend a couple things since we last met. Last week was the faculty recital. Dr. Barrett performed a piece with the elementary school music educators, and it was really a fun night. This was, I felt, one where we had a lot of audience participation. The students had their phones out with lights and they were going like this. It was a lot of fun, clapping, snapping. It used to be, I think, a little bit more formal, and now it's become, I think, more of a fun event that the kids look forward to attending and seeing their music teachers up there performing, since they're usually the opposite, performing for them. Also, I was able to attend one of the Unified Vikings games back in December, one of the home games, and I wanted to let everyone know that this Friday, the 16th at 6:15, in the contest gym at the high school is their game where they play the boys and girls varsity game. It's a pack the place night, so hope everyone can come out. It's really a lot of fun to see them play. I believe, Dr. Barrett, you're going to be announcing along with Mr. Rogers.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's the games are pretty quick, but I remember going to this last year and it was a lot of fun seeing the varsity teams play against them. So hope everyone can make that. And then I was also able to attend the GHS PTO meeting. One of the things they talked about is that they need a new chair for the post-prom event, and that is very much their focus this time of year, getting that ready. The woman who has done it for many years. She's got everything written down, ready for the next person to come in and take that. So I know that they had put it out on social media that they're looking for a new chair, so wanted to just mention that. And then also looking for all of our PTOs, just a reminder that they do operate on your donations, particularly at the high school level. They don't do any other fundraisers like the other grade levels do. So it's really helpful that a lot of that money goes toward the post-prom and other events that they do, and they kind of went through that with us at the meeting the other night. So something to look for the high school folks. You might be hearing a little bit more about that. And then finally, I just want to say thanks to our presenters. I say this every time, but you do put a lot of effort into what you bring to us, and it's always thorough and informative. And I agree with what you said, Stephanie, just having kind of a I don't want to say refresher, but coming back and telling us more, like you did tonight, Ms. Sims, about that program is really helpful, and not only for us, but for all the folks who are watching our meetings. And then also want to say thanks to all of our generous donors, that some really amazing people who have stepped up this time and given some money for different causes. So thank you to that. That's all I have.
Thank you, Jackie. Paul?
Yeah, not much, just getting back in the swing of things. I think I have my first PTO this week coming online. I'd like to thank Brian for his presentation. Capital planning is not the most exciting thing, but once you take out the cost of your salaries and your benefits is probably our biggest spend. And we need to be prepared for what we need to do. And I like the fact that we're being transparent, and I'm hoping that the community sees this and starts to take interest in it because it's their schools. And, you know, the benefit, if it also reflects back on the whole community, and the value of their homes. So this is an important issue. So, please, get involved.
I don't have anything new to add to what has already been said. I echo what everybody has already said. To Brian and Mike in your presentations tonight, it's a testament of being, you know, good stewards of money, you know, of what we're spending and how we're spending it, and looking forward at if we can put in a cost now that's going to save us later. It really impacts that bottom line. So thank you both for that. And to kind of echo a little bit what Stephanie said, policies come in waves. Sometimes we have a few. This last couple months, the policy committee has worked through numerous policies, but I just wanted to give a little shout out to Stephanie personally, chairing that committee. She comes every policy committee meeting with notes written on every single policy and really takes that role seriously. And these are policies that drive all components of what we do here. So thank you to being so well organized and prepared for your role to bring it to us in the policy committee and then to the board. So thank you for that, and thank you for to echo what everybody else has said tonight.
Similar to Molly, I don't have much to add to what everyone else said. I do want to add to what Paul mentioned in regard to the facility presentation that we had tonight. If you would, if people that are watching, or people that are here, if they could see the amount of information that was in that report that we saw during the board retreat, it would be amazing to see how Brian kind of deciphered or filtered that down into such a small presentation or short presentation, because that could have taken up all of our time tonight with how much information was in that report. So kudos to Brian for doing that, and thank you, Mike, for your presentation as well, and Shawnette as well. So let's see what else. Oh, wanted to also double down on what Jack was talking about with going to the PTO, the high school PTO, in regard to the fundraiser. That letter did go out today, so for those that saw that letter, yeah, please do think about donating to the high school PTO especially. And then, yeah, just a few extra. We talked about the bowling activity, and so that was fun to go to that this week as well. So something unique that I've never gone to before, but definitely hope everyone has a chance to go to a bowling match or meet sometime, because it was awesome. That's all I have.
Thank you, Dan. For myself, I will re-emphasize the importance of these presentations, not only for our benefit and for those of you in the audience, but for people who watch on TV later and catch up. I know Brenda Shorey, our press person, does that most of the time. And those allow the citizens to be well informed about what's going on. And with what Paul said about the facilities report, Brian did an amazing job. And it is true that there is a lot of things that need to be done, and we are on top of it and working to get those things done in a timely fashion. So I appreciate everyone's hard effort, the presenters and the people who are doing all of the other work it takes to make this district run smoothly. So thank you for that. There are no notices or announcements, and then I get to read this short bit about executive session, and we'll vote. Executive session to consider matters pertaining to student disciplinary cases, security procedures, school buildings, safety and security, and the use of personnel and equipment to respond to an actual or threatened or a reasonably potential danger to the safety of employees, student, staff, public or public property. And for that reason, we need to go into executive session, which means we need to have a vote to go into executive session, and a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Paul Rudzinski,
Aye.
Molly Ansari,
Aye.
Stephanie Bellino,
Aye.
Dan Choi,
Aye.
Jackie Ford,
Aye.
Willard
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and executive session means that you're all done. So thank you for your part, and we appreciate your coming to see
Thanks
the
for
board.
coming, everybody.
Yes, thank you.